Have you ever seen your name printed on the registration of a car that isn't yours? Not a borrowed car, not a rental. A bow-tied brand new SUV in your parents' driveway, your name, your risk, your problem if anything goes wrong. I want you to hold that picture for a second, because that's where my night began. It was Christmas in Kirkland, cold enough that your breath hung like tiny ghosts over the driveway. My parents love a scene, so they staged one. White twinkle lights on the cedar hedge, a Bluetooth speaker looping classic carols, cocoa in mismatched mugs that didn't match on purpose. And right there, front and center, a BMW X5 with a red bow so glossy you could see yourself in it. My sister Maya squealed. You would have too. She bounced on her toes, one hand clapped over her mouth, the other reaching for the hood like she needed to touch proof. My mom dabbed her eyes. My dad filmed with his phone in vertical video because he's convinced that's more cinematic. We were instructed to line up 3 feet back, for the moment. You know that phrase, the moment. The one you're supposed to clap for and post online so your family looks shiny. Then gift time shifted to me, a square box, crinkly red paper. I peeled it back like it mattered and found a candle with a label that said, "Snowed in." I smiled. You would have smiled too. That polite, harmless curve that says, I get it. I'm the stable one, the responsible one, the one who won't make tonight awkward. The scent was something woodsy and clean. It tried hard to smell like money. Here's the thing. The candle wasn't the slap. Not even close. The slap came 10 minutes later in the kitchen when I went hunting for napkins and saw a manila envelope on the island. Dad's handwriting across the top. Glove box, keep safe. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. It had slid open already. Registration papers peeked out like a white tongue. My name sat there in crisp black letters, first, middle, last. Exactly as it appears on my license. You know that feeling when your stomach drops but your body stays upright? It was that. I read the line twice. Owner, Avery Lane, the VIN, the make, the model. The whole thing quietly, casually, legally mine. I blinked hard and double-checked, the way you do when you can't believe what your eyes are telling you. The letters didn't rearrange. They didn't morph into Maya's name. They stayed mine. Maybe you would have called out right there. Maybe you would have carried the envelope into the living room and held it up like evidence under fluorescent lights. I didn't. I breathed. I told myself there had to be a reason, a clerical error, a temporary fix. I wanted to believe there was some adult in the room who had thought this through. I put the envelope back. I took the napkins. I returned to the cocoa and the carols and the careful scene. Maya had the driver's door open. She was playing with the seat settings, laughing at the adjustable lumbar support like it was a personality trait. My dad handed me his phone and asked me to film. I did, because sometimes you film the thing that's breaking you just to prove to yourself later that it broke. After dinner, I slipped into the home office to plug in my phone. That's what I told myself. Really, I needed air, space. The office smells like paper and printer ink and summer dust, even in winter. Dad's laptop was open, the mail client in full glory because he never logs out of anything. I know I shouldn't have looked, you're right, but the subject line at the top glowed like a hazard. Policy adjustment for X5. There are emails you ignore. There are emails that are a house on fire, I clicked. He had written to their insurance agent earlier that week. We'll be putting the X5 under Avery's name, he typed, because she has a perfect record and it'll save us a lot. That's a quote. Save us a lot. Attached were forms already filled with my details, my driver's license number, my address, my date of birth. There was a note in a reply about premiums, a table, columns, scenarios, and a line that might as well have been a siren. If there's an at-fault accident with the X5 and the insured is Avery, premiums can spike up to 340%. I stared at that number until it burned like the peppermint sting of cheap lip balm. 340%. You don't forget a number like that. This is how it works. The bow is for show. The paperwork is the play. If the bow makes you clap, the paperwork makes you pay. If Maya wrecks the car, who gets sued? Me. If a lawyer goes hunting for the deeper pockets, whose name is on the line? Mine. If there's a camera at the wrong angle on the wrong night and someone needs a villain, guess who gets the mail? The candle had been a decoy, a scent to keep me calm while the ink dried on a new liability. I sat back, hands flat on the desk. The house muffled around me. I could hear laughter. A high clink of glass on granite. A playlist crooning about home. My phone buzzed with a group text. Christmas Queens. Photo of two sisters, one clutching a key fob, one holding a candle. Guess which one I was? You know what the old me would have done. The old me would have swallowed it. The old me would have told myself, it's family, it's fine, you'll sort it out later. Later is a dangerous place. Later is where people like me go to carry everyone else's mess. Later is where premiums grow and boundaries die. Later is a story you tell yourself to keep the peace for people who wouldn't cross a room to keep you safe. So I did something different. I asked a very simple question. The same one I asked you. If you saw your name on a registration for a car you didn't receive, what would you do? You could confront. You could explode. You could make a scene in front of a camera that's still recording. You could... But cameras love chaos. Paperwork loves patience. I took pictures instead. Front of the registration, back of the registration, close-up of my name. The policy email, not forwarded, just screenshots with timestamps. I emailed the screenshots to myself with a subject line I'd find at a glance later. X5. My name on it? I put the laptop to sleep. I breathed again. Then I went back to the living room and watched my family perform normal. Maya talked about taking the car to Leavenworth for lights. My mom talked about winter tires like she'd just discovered their existence. My dad was already comparing insurance rates aloud, like this thing was still theoretical, like the numbers weren't already hardening on a server somewhere. I sipped cocoa that tasted like chocolate-flavored noise. I nodded when my name was used as a synonym for safe and reliable, and the reason we can afford this. It took exactly 30 minutes for the decision to finish cooking. It didn't boil. It thickened. That's how decisions go when you've spent years practicing self-erasure. They don't strike like lightning. They congeal like gravy. I excused myself to get some air. Outside, the bow reflected the street lamp in wet ripples. The hood was cool. The night was the kind that makes your lungs sting clean. I walked to the driver's side. The key fob was still in the cup holder because no one had thought they needed to guard it. Who would when the paperwork was already doing the guarding? I opened the door. The new car smell hit like a thesis on money. There's a sterile sweetness to it, a plasticky promise that life will be simpler now. I sat. The seat hugged me like it had been pre-programmed to know my spine. I pressed the brake. I pressed the start. The engine came alive in a baritone hum that you feel under your ribs. I didn't peel out. There's a fantasy version where you spin snow and leave a movie shot. Real life is quieter. I put the car in reverse. I watched the backup camera draw yellow lines like rails. I paused at the end of the driveway, blinked my blinker on, listened for a car that wasn't there. The house glowed behind me. I could see our living room through the bay window, all warm frames and shadowed laughter. I felt a thread tug inside my chest, then I felt it snap. I drove down the street like it was any night, 2 right turns, 1 left. I parked around the corner near a maple tree that had long since let go of every leaf. I sat in the dark and let my heartbeat catch up. I texted Maya, taking the car to fill the tank back soon. It was true enough to pass. Then I opened the Notes app and wrote 4 lines because that's what my brain does under pressure. It outlines. Line 1, your name is on the registration. Line 2, your name is on the insurance. Line 3, if there's an accident, you sit in court. Line 4, If they needed your name to save money, they can have the car back when your name is off the paper. I drove to a gas station that's always half empty because its card readers are slow. I filled the tank anyway. I wanted no favors owed, not even that. I printed a receipt and folded it into the glove box next to the manila envelope like a calling card. Back in the driver's seat, I wrote a note on an index card I found in my tote. We will only discuss this through documents. Please remove my name from the registration and policy. After that, we can talk. A. I slid the note under the envelope's flap and closed the glove box soft, like tucking in a child. When I pulled back into the driveway, no one was at the window. The living room had shifted into a movie, sound low, faces lit blue. I put the fob on the console. I stepped out into that cold that lets you see what you exhale. I closed the door, not dramatic, just final. I walked to my car, the old one with the paint chip on the passenger door that looks like a map of Iceland, and I drove away. If you were me, would you have done it sooner? Would you have done it at all? That's not a rhetorical question. If you've ever been the reliable one, the safe bet, the human shield for someone else's risk, I want to hear how you handled it. Drop me your story. Because tonight, I didn't say yes and I didn't explode. I chose a third thing. I chose paper. I chose proof. I chose to leave before the scene could swallow me whole. I didn't sleep. I watched the blue digits on my bedside clock flip like tiny doors. 112, 204, 331. You know those nights. Your body lies down, but your mind stands up and paces the room. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the word owner beside my name. It looked clean. It felt dirty. By sunrise, the group text was already boiling. Where's the X5? From Dad, 3 dots. Are you playing games? From Mom. Maya's bubble blinked and died. Then Dad again, no punctuation this time, which is how you know he's mad. Return the car now. We'll call the police. The word police hit different in my chest. A stone tossed in a shallow pond. Ripples of adrenaline. I typed, erased, typed again. I wanted to send paragraphs, essays, history. Instead, I sent exactly 12 words. We'll discuss this through documents only. I'll contact an attorney today. I put the phone face down and listened to the house wake, pipes knocking, heat kicking on. A neighbor's garbage can drag like a slow drum roll down the curb. Then I did the most adult thing I know. I made coffee, sat at my small kitchen table, opened my laptop, and searched for Seattle Attorney Vehicle Title Insurance Dispute. You'd be surprised how many results have smiling people in navy blazers telling you they understand your needs. I skimmed bios, locations, case blurbs. I wanted 2 things: downtown proximity and a voice on the phone that didn't make me feel small. I called the third firm. A receptionist with a voice like an organized calendar answered. I gave the 30-second version. Family's new car, my name on registration and policy, threats to call the cops. She put me on hold. I watched steam from my mug twist and fade. Then a new voice clicked on. Calm, even. This is Karen Blake. Tell me exactly what you have in your hands. I told her. Photos of the registration. Screenshots of the policy email. Timestamps. The whole boring, terrifying paper trail. Okay, she said. First principle. The name on the registration is presumed to be the legal owner. That's you. Second principle. The named insured on a policy is the one whose premiums and liability are at stake. That's also you, I breathed. So if I drive the car away to keep it off the road, I'm not stealing. You can't steal what you own, she said. You also have a duty to yourself to prevent exposure. Your instincts were solid. You know that feeling when someone puts language to something you've only held as heat? It was that. The kitchen shrank. In a good way, the air got edges. Here's what to do next, Karen continued. Don't respond to threats by text. Ask for everything in writing. Email only. No calls, no pop-ins. You can offer a straightforward path. transfer title and policy to the actual user, or buy the vehicle from you at fair market value and indemnify you for any past exposure. Until then, you keep the car off the road or park it in a secure lot. I'll draft a letter you can send within the hour." "What about the police?" I asked. "If they call, you tell them the truth. You're the registered owner protecting your legal and financial interests. You have counsel. That's it." I wrote it down like lines for a play I didn't want to perform. Registered owner, protecting legal and financial interests, have counsel. Before we hung up, Karen asked, "Avery, are you safe where you are?" It took me a beat. No one had ever asked me that in a way that included emotional weather. "I am," I said. "For now." "Good. Check your email in 20 minutes. The phone vibrated as soon as I set it down. "You took advantage of a present for your sister," Mom wrote. "This is ugly." The old me would have apologized just for the word ugly being in the room. The new me counted 10, opened my email instead, and found Karen's letter waiting like a spine. Subject line: "Demand to cure exposure and transfer ownership. 2019 BMW X5. The body was simple, no drama. It laid out facts like bricks, name on title, mine, named insured, me, risk exposure, premiums and liability likely to spike up to 340% in certain scenarios. Remedy: within 10 business days, transfer title and policy to the actual operator, Maya, or execute a purchase agreement and indemnity releasing me from any past or future claims related to the vehicle. Until cure. All communications through counsel, all interactions scheduled. No informal contact." I read it twice, my mouth a little open. The way you watch someone build a wall in seconds. I forwarded the letter to my parents with 3 words at the top: "Please review attached." Then I blocked calls from both of them for 24 hours, not forever, just long enough to keep the conversation where it belongs, on paper. And because adrenaline without motion curdles into dread, I packed. It wasn't dramatic. Jeans, hoodies, a French press wrapped in a dish towel, a framed photo of me and Maya at the Puyallup Fair back when we both had bangs and braces and hope that matched. I slid a plant onto the floorboard and buckled it like a tiny green passenger. Then I drove to Ballard. If you don't know Ballard, picture a neighborhood that still smells faintly of salt and sawdust. Old fisherman bars turned espresso temples, dogs in sweaters. People who will lend you a drill and a casserole and ask for neither back. I had a sublet lined up from a friend of a friend, a 1-bedroom over a bakery where mornings rise in sugar. The landlord left the key in a lockbox with a code that felt like a secret handshake. I climbed the narrow stairs with my suitcase banging my shin at every turn. The apartment was small, clean, sunlit. Someone had left a reed diffuser on the counter that smelled like fig. The couch was gray and unambitious. The windows looked out on a slice of canal where boats moved like slow thoughts. I set my boxes down. I unlocked my shoulders. I turned my phone to Do Not Disturb and sat cross-legged on the carpet just to feel the newness of the floor. Then the doorbell rang. It was not my family. It was delivery. An envelope from Karen's office, hand-couriered, because she does not play tag with emergencies. Inside were 2 copies of the letter on letterhead and a simple checklist with empty boxes that made me want to exhale. Stakes. Civil liability, insurance premiums, credit score, employment background checks. Seeing those words listed out felt like someone had taken the fog in my head and folded it into clouds with borders. I taped the checklist to the inside of a kitchen cabinet where you'd usually hide a spice rack. Every time I opened the door, there it was, like a guardrail. This is what's at risk if you blink. This is why you keep the conversation boring. This is why you choose paper over performance. The texts kept arriving, of course, from unknown numbers now. "Return the car by noon or we press charges." "You are humiliating this family." We did what we had to do to give Maya a start. Each one tried on a different mask: authority, shame, sacrifice, like an actor in Quick Change. I didn't reply. I forwarded them to Karen, filed them in a folder named X5, Comms, and kept breathing. Around noon, Maya finally wrote, "Can we talk?" Just us? I stared at the screen until the letters blurred into fireflies. My thumbs hovered. I wanted to FaceTime her and look for the girl from the fair, the one with powdered sugar on her nose. But the rule was the rule. I typed, "Email me. I'll read everything." Then I put the phone away before I could soften. There was a time in my life when I would have driven back to my parents' house because a text with the word police had shown up. I would have parked in the driveway like a defendant and offered explanations no one asked for. This time, I called the non-emergency line myself. I gave my name. I explained the situation like I was reading it off a card. I am the registered owner of a vehicle that my family is pressuring me to relinquish without curing my exposure. They've threatened to report it stolen. The operator listened. "You have documentation?" she asked. "Yes." "If officers are dispatched, tell them exactly what you told me. Keep your lawyer's number handy. You're doing the right thing." It's amazing how 3 sentences from a stranger can steady your bones. In the late afternoon, when the sun goes copper behind the cranes, I walked to the canal and let the cold rearrange my thoughts. Ballard sounds different than Kirkland. Less curated, more honest. You hear gulls and horns and laughter that isn't trying to make a reel. I counted steps on the boardwalk like a rosary. 20 up, 20 back. A couple in matching beanies ambled past, holding hands with their pinkies. I envied the ease of small agreements. On the way home, I bought a cheap desk at a thrift store and carried it up the stairs one stubborn end at a time. I set my laptop on it and aligned the chair so my feet planted flat. Then I drafted an email to my parents with my voice emptied of decoration. "Per our counsel's letter, please respond with your plan to either A. Transfer title and insurance to Maya, or B. Purchase the vehicle at fair market value with indemnity. All communications via email, no phone calls. We can schedule a time to meet with counsel present to sign documents. I'm available next Wednesday at 10 a.m. downtown." I read it out loud. It sounded like a person I was still learning to be. Before I hit send, something flickered at the edge of my mind. A memory, sharp and small, like a fish turning in shallow water. Flashback, 16, DMV, my dad asking me to sign a thing for insurance reasons. The pen cold, my hand obedient. Flashback, 22, helping Maya open her first bank account, me co-signing the debit card just for setup, the teller smiling like we were 2 halves of a smart plan. Flashback, 27, Thanksgiving, talk of refinancing the house to help everyone breathe, me nodding, my name a tool that didn't feel like mine. I blinked back into the apartment, the reed diffuser, the desk, the checklist in the cabinet. This is the new rule, I told myself. If something needs your name, it needs a document. If it needs your signature, it needs your schedule and your consent. If someone says, just for now, it needs a calendar date and a way out, I hit send. My phone buzzed once more. A single line from Maya. "I'll email," she wrote. "I'm sorry." I put the phone face down and let the sentence land. Not a fix, not an apology that resets years, but a hand extended in a room where everyone else was pointing fingers. I made dinner standing up, toast, eggs, spinach that surrendered to heat in 30 seconds. I ate by the window and watched the last light drain. I set an alarm for the morning and slid Karen's card, thick, white, square, into the pocket of my coat. Then I locked the door twice. Not just to keep people out, but to keep a promise in. Quick check-in with you before I close. If your family threatened police over paperwork that put your name at risk, would you hold the line too? Or would you pick up when they call? I'm asking because one choice buys peace for tonight. The other buys safety for tomorrow, Which would you choose? I picked a neutral table. Not my kitchen counter, not the couch. The little oak dining table I'd found secondhand, set square under the window, the canal behind it moving like a slow sentence. I laid out the papers before anyone arrived. Title copy, insurance screenshots, Karen's letter on Creamstock, a pen that clicked with a satisfying courtroom click. I poured a glass of water and practiced breathing like a person who didn't owe anyone an explanation. At 2:00, the buzzer rang 3 times in a row. My father does everything in threes. It's his way of being certain he's heard. I pressed the button. The stairwell carried our history up. Footfalls, coats, a whiff of my mother's perfume that always smells like the first 5 minutes of church. Maya came last. She closed the door behind them and gave me a look that asked for mercy before the meeting even started. No hugs, no small talk. I pulled out chairs. Everyone sat. The table turned into a boardroom because a table becomes what you put on it. "We're here," Dad said, as if the fact of their bodies in chairs was the concession. He looked at the papers like they'd personally wronged him. Mom folded her hands. "Avery," she began, "we just want to fix this. You've turned a gift into—" She searched for the word, "a situation." There are words that are designed to shrink things. Situation is one. "It's already a situation," I said. "I'm keeping it from becoming a disaster." Dad tapped the title copy. "This is temporary," he said. "We used your name because of your record. We've done this before. It's family." His voice landed on the word family like a stamp. The ink bled. I pointed to the first page. Owner, me. Named insured, me. If that car is in an accident, the letter we all receive will be addressed to me. If anyone sues, my name goes first. If the premiums spike, my credit gets tagged. If an adjuster calls, I'm the insured, not a placeholder. Not a helpful sister, the insured. Mom's smile tried to do the work of argument. "You're the careful one. We knew you'd keep everyone safe." "That's not safety," I said. "That's cover." Maya stared at the water glass like the right words were hidden at the bottom. "I didn't ask for the paperwork," she said softly. They wanted it to be easy." "Easy for who?" I asked. The question hung like frost. Dad leaned back. His coat creaked. "This is dramatic," he said. "The police are not going to come arrest you for returning a car to its proper home." "I'm not worried about police," I said. "I'm worried about courtrooms. I'm worried about years. I'm worried about the way temporary becomes permanent if no one draws a line." I slid Karen's letter into the center. "Here's the line." He didn't pick it up. He squinted at it like print could be defied by effort. Mom reached for it first, because of course she did. She read silently, lips moving. When she finished, she placed the letter down as if it might bruise the table. 10 business days, she said. Transfer everything to Maya, or purchase the vehicle from Avery and indemnify her, she exhaled. You act like we're criminals. No, I said. I act like I have a life that depends on signatures, on premiums, on not being named in someone else's problem. I act like a person who knows that love isn't a liability policy. Dad's turned to smile. It was thin and old. You're making this about you? It is about me, I said. My name, my liability, my future. He tapped the letter again, performing disdain with 2 fingers. What do you want, Avery? Money? Is that what this is? I laughed once. It surprised me. I want the car to match the driver. I want the risk to sit with the person who benefits. I want a family that doesn't confuse generosity with using someone as a shield. Since I can't have the last one today, I'll settle for the first 2. Maya finally looked up. If I agree to put everything in my name, will you give it back? Her eyes were so wide I could see the tremor in the iris. Yes, I said. Of course. That's the point. Mom flinched at. Of course. Do you understand what you're asking your sister to carry? She's young. She's the driver, I said. That's the job. Dad's patience unspooled. We can't afford the premiums in her name. That's the math. We did the math. You know this. There it was. The actual engine of the whole arrangement, money. The cold logic of it, wrapped in the warm shawl of family. I nodded like I do when I hear a hard truth. Then the other option is on the table, I said. Buy the vehicle from me at fair market value and indemnify me from any past or future claims. We'll sign it all in front of a notary. Karen will draft the documents. We can do it Wednesday at 10. Mom's mouth pinched. We're not letting you profit from your sister's gift. It isn't profit, I said. It's protection. Dad's voice came up a half step. You're punishing us for trying to give your sister a leg up. I'm declining to be the leg, I said. There's a difference. He stood. I stayed seated. He is taller when he stands, not because he is tall, but because he's used to the view. This is what happens when people move to the city, he said to the ceiling, to the canal, to some imagined audience. They forget who raised them. Maya whispered Dad, but it slid off him. I let the quiet stretch. It held. Then I did the thing I'd promised myself I would do if the meeting turned into theater. I spoke in lists. Lists are how I build stairs out of quicksand. 3 boundaries, I said, holding up a finger for each. 1. My name is not a coupon. It doesn't reduce anyone's premium just because it's neat and tidy on a form. If my name appears on a document, it will be because I chose it, with terms, with dates, with an exit. 2. If something rides on my risk, I set the rules. Who drives? Who pays? Who answers the phone when numbers I don't recognize light up? If I'm not in charge, I'm not on it. 3. Love doesn't ask me to lie. Not to the state, not to a company, not to myself. If the only way this family works is if I pretend I'm fine, then this family doesn't work. The room reacted the way rooms do when truth isn't invited but comes anyway. A draft moved through even though the windows were closed. My mother's chin trembled. My father's jaw did the thing where the muscle hums like a wasp. Maya looked at me like I'd opened a door she didn't know existed. Dad sat again. If it was a concession, it was microscopic. What if we pay you a stipend for the risk? He asked, bargaining with a system that doesn't accept tips. A monthly amount. We'll handle any tickets. We'll make sure. It's not a rental, I said. It's my record. He rubbed his face. This lawyer has put ideas in your head. Law put the ideas there, I said. The lawyer gave me words. Mom tried a new route. What are people going to think? That we can't take care of our own? I think, I said, people will see a woman who learned that taking care of your own includes yourself. We hit a pause, not peace. Just the place where everyone runs out of the lines they rehearsed in the car. Maya took a breath like she was stepping into cold water. Okay, she said to me, if I put it all in my name, will you help me figure out the process? I don't know where to start. Of course, I said and meant it. I'll send a checklist. We'll go to the DMV together. We'll call the insurer. It's not complicated. It's just admin. Dad looked at her, betrayed by her willingness to engage the adult world. We can't afford it, he repeated, as if repetition could shave dollars off a number. We simply can't. Mom folded the letter. She folded it again. She slid it back toward me as if refusing to absorb its shape could unmake it. We will not be buying a car from our own daughter, she said. That is absurd. It's common, I said. Families sign things every day, bills of sale, transfers, indemnities. It keeps love from getting sticky with money. The meeting was over even before it ended. You know that feeling? The air shifts. The outcome declares itself without a vote. My father stood again. He pointed at the door, not because he owns my apartment, but because he is fluent in gestures of exit. We'll be in touch, he said. Which is family, for I'm not done fighting. I stood too. Email only, I said. No more texts. Mom put her hand on my forearm. It was warm and familiar and heavy with script. "You used to be so easy," she said. "I used to be so erased," I said. She let go. Maya hugged me. It was brief, a question disguised as a squeeze. I squeezed back, an answer disguised as patience. "Text me the list," she whispered into my shoulder. "Email," I whispered into her hair, and we both almost laughed because sometimes the only way to keep from crying is to follow a rule. When they left, the apartment exhaled. The reed diffuser smelled like fig again. I sat, put my palms on the table, and listened to the hum of the refrigerator like a far-off engine. Then I picked up the pen and did the next right thing. I listed the tasks out loud to keep my brain from slipping into the swamp. 1. Schedule an appointment to transfer title. 2. Draft the insurance switch script for Maya. 3. If neither happens, list the car at fair value and move it off my ledger. 4. Find a therapist and book a first session. Not because I am broken. Because I am building. Because boundaries are walls that still need doors and windows. I sold the BMW within the week. You learn how fast a car moves when it's priced honestly and described precisely. The buyer brought a cashier's check and an inspection, and I gave him receipts and a folder with the cleanest paperwork I've ever seen. He looked at me like I was over-prepared. I was. I wanted the universe to see me do one thing cleanly start to finish. I bought a used Corolla with cloth seats that remembered my shape. It started on the first turn no matter how cold the morning, and it didn't have a bow and it didn't need one. I signed the title with a pen that felt like it belonged to me. I put my name on the insurance and smiled because it finally matched the truth. The premiums were not low, they were accurate. There's a difference. I found a CBT therapist in Fremont who didn't use the word journey unless I did. We sat in a room with a ficus and a window that looked at a brick wall and talked about patterns like they were maps you could edit. I learned to notice the moment before I dissolved. I learned to choose silence over explanations when silence was the stronger sentence. I learned to tolerate the itch of people being disappointed in me without scratching it with compliance. I also got a job, a real one, not a placeholder gig to prove to anyone that I could pay my way. A role in a content team that liked my lists and my clean sentences and my habit of naming the stakes before the pitch. "You think like a producer," my boss said in the interview. I didn't tell her that producers are just people who've been forced to hold too much and finally decided to hold it deliberately. "Look, I know some of you are wondering what you would have done at that table. Would you have found a compromise I didn't mention? Would you have softened more? Would you have handed back the fob to keep the peace and swallowed the premium risk like a vitamin that sticks in your throat but eventually goes down? Maybe you would have. Maybe you've done it before. Maybe you're doing it now. So tell me, be honest, if your family sat across from you and called your boundary ugly, would you return the car or keep the line where you drew it? Peace didn't arrive like a parade. It showed up like a neighbor, knocking once, polite, holding a casserole with foil crinkled at the corners. It tasted familiar and a little bland. It was enough. The first sign was an email. Subject line, "I'm sorry. No punctuation." 2 words in a white field that felt bigger than our living room. It was from Maya. I sat on the gray couch with my knees tucked up, the canal sliding past the window in a steady, unremarkable blue. I stared at the subject line long enough for my laptop to dim, then brightened the screen and clicked. She didn't over-explain. She didn't litigate. She wrote, "I didn't understand what it meant to have your name on everything. I thought it was a family thing. I'm sorry I let easy be more important than right. Can we talk? Just us." I read it twice, then a third time, then let the words sit like warm coins in my palm. You know when an apology lands because it de-escalates the room inside your chest. Mine got quieter by a few degrees. I wrote back, "Email only for now. Coffee in a public place. No talk about should. Just facts and next steps. If you agree, I'll pick a spot." Then I set the laptop on the coffee table and listened to the building breathe, the radiator pinging, the bakery below dragging trays like a soft metronome. I waited for regret to tap me on the shoulder. It didn't. Maya replied, "Deal. Tell me where." I chose a cafe that smells like cardamom and clean wood, and that keeps its music low enough for truths to hear themselves. Ballard in January has a gray that could be depressing if you fight it, but if you accept it, the gray becomes a kind of permission. Wear the soft sweater. Take the longer way. Sit with the steam. She arrived in a parka zipped too high, sunglasses she didn't need because every Seattle sun in winter is a rumor. She pulled them off and put them on the table like a truce. Her hair was knotted under a beanie, her cheeks winter bright. For a second, I didn't see the new car or the old emails. I saw us at the fair with powdered sugar on our mouths, laughing at a goat with crooked teeth. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said. Then we looked at our hands, because they are easier to disappoint than faces, we ordered. Oat milk for her because she's allergic to everything trendy. Drip for me because I like the sermon of it, simple, hot, honest. We sat and let the cafe do its comforting, a hiss from the espresso machine, a spoon clink, a small child narrating his own cookie like a sportscaster. "I didn't know the risk sat on you like that," Maya said, more to her cup than to me. "I thought we were, I don't know, sharing." "Sharing means everyone carries something," I said. "This was me carrying so you could move faster." She winced. "I hate that sentence." "Me too," I said, and we almost smiled because agreement is still a muscle we know how to flex. We kept to the rules, facts, not shoulds. She asked about the transfer. I described it like a recipe: title appointment, insurance switch, 2 signatures, 1 fee. A script for calling the agent that didn't blame anyone, just corrected the record. We built a list on a napkin because napkins know secrets. "I can do that," she said. "I'll do that." "Good." I paused. "And if you can't afford the premium, say that. Don't outsource the cost to my name and call it love." She nodded, the way people nod when a new word finally fits the sentence they've been using wrong for years. The cafe door opened and let a cold edge slice through the warmth. We shivered at the same time. It felt like choreography. "I told Mom and Dad I'd handle it," she said. "They're not happy. They don't have to be," I said. "They only have to be honest." We finished our cups. We didn't fix our family. We picked one stitch and tied it. Sometimes that's enough for a day. Outside, the sky tried a lighter shade of gray, like it wanted to encourage us without committing to the bit. We hugged, small and careful, like people carrying porcelain. Back in the apartment, I tacked a new card on the inside of the kitchen cabinet next to the checklist. Conditions for contact in bold. Under it, 3 lines. No using my name for convenience. No money or property without documents. No conversations that require me to forget myself afterward. I read them out loud because words spoken get more teeth. If it sounds strict, it is. Strictness gave me peace where flexibility had given me a rash. Life narrowed in the best way. Work, sleep, walks along the canal watching sea lions who pop up like punctuation. I learned the bakery's schedule by smell. I made friends with the morning barista who reads paperbacks between lattes and underlines lines with a pencil like they'll disappear if she doesn't. I said yes to a neighbor's invitation to trivia night and remembered I know random facts about rivers for no reason. I bought a lamp that throws a warm circle on the rug and makes every evening feel like a private stage where nothing dramatic needs to happen. Therapy helped reshape the grammar of my days. My therapist in Fremont doesn't nod at everything. She asks, "Where did you learn that?" As if patterns are addresses you can move away from. We built small practices that sound simple and cost me everything. Pause before replying. Ask, "What am I agreeing to?" out loud. Notice where my shoulders are sitting and bring them home. Tiny things with giant shadows. You get it. My phone stopped being a fire alarm. It became a tool again. Emails from Karen were short and surgical. Title appointment confirmed. Insurance transfer scheduled. Indemnity draft attached for review. I read those emails like lines in a play where I finally had a speaking role. Maya forwarded me her confirmation from the insurer with exactly 0 emojis. Progress looks like punctuation sometimes. On Thursday nights, I cooked for people who knew me as a person before they learned my family's favorite adjectives for me. I made soup that tastes like rain and bread, that forgives mistakes in the kneading. We ate on the floor because chairs are optional, but hunger is not. We traded stories of work, not trauma, like we were kids showing each other pocket rocks. Someone said, "You seem lighter." I said, "I'm heavier." My name has weight now. They laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. Every morning I walked past the Corolla and thanked it for being boring. Boring is a love language no one teaches you when you grow up on a diet of emergencies. It started, it stopped. It didn't try to be a metaphor. It got me to therapy and work and home and never asked for my signature on anything I couldn't pronounce. From my window, I watched ferries cut clean paths across the water and thought, that's it. That's the vibe. Slow, sure. Carry what you said you would carry. Don't perform weightlifting for strangers. Maya and I met twice more. Once to sign the title papers. Once to call the insurer. She was shaky on the first call, voice thin like thread, then steadier on the second. When the agent asked 3 security questions, she answered without looking at me, and I felt something unclench, like a knot remembering it could be string. We didn't talk about Christmas. We didn't review the boardroom or our parents' faces or the word ugly as it rang in that room. We stuck to admin and peppermint mochas and the pleasure of finishing a task in under an hour. Our relationship didn't heal in a montage. It adjusted. We hung a level and tapped the frame until the bubble centered. Close enough for now. At night, I kept the apartment quiet on purpose. No TV. No playlists that tell you how to feel. I listened to the building settle, the canal lap, the bakery clean. I dated myself like I was someone I wanted to impress. Fresh sheets, clean counters. A book I didn't have to discuss later. When grief arrived, because grief is inevitable even when you're right, I let it sit. It came as a heaviness behind my sternum and left as a better sentence in the morning. Here's a small thing that changed everything. I stopped narrating my decisions for my parents in my head. I stopped staging imaginary debates in the shower where I had all the perfect points, and they finally clapped. You've done that, right? Built a courtroom in your skull and tried your own case until you were declared reasonable by ghosts? I fired the judge. I closed the court. That freed up so much space I found a drawer in my brain I didn't know I had. In it, jokes, curiosity. The kind of rest that isn't sleep but feels like it. Work got better, too. I wrote a brief that landed with a thud, in the good way, and my boss said, "You are very clear." No one had ever used clear as a compliment for me before. Clear had been a threat in my family. Clear meant disloyal. In this office, clear meant useful. It made me want to keep going. You're probably wondering about my parents. We didn't speak much. They sent one email agreeing to proceed per Karen's instructions, and then a second with 2 sentences that were almost a compliment. "We'll handle our end. Glad you're well." It was stiffer than a church pew, but it didn't ask me to bend. I took the win. On a Saturday, I did a loop around Green Lake and high-fived a stranger in a polar bear suit, because Seattle will hand you whimsy if you let it. I stopped at a thrift store and found a coat the color of damp moss, with pockets deep enough to hide a paperback and a granola bar and a spare kindness. I took myself to breakfast and didn't look at my phone once. The egg yolk broke like a sun, and I thought, this is the kind of boring you fight for. I'm not going to tell you it was perfect. Boundaries don't turn you into a statue. Some nights I wanted to text my mom a picture of my dinner just to prove I can feed myself. Some mornings I slipped and practiced conversations in my head again. Progress, not sainthood. That's the bumper sticker I keep forgetting to print. If you've ever done this, set a rule and then lived inside it, you know the quiet feels earned. It's not a truce where you hold your breath. It's a rhythm your body starts to trust. You wake, you work, you walk, you make a choice, you keep it, no applause, no edits. Just the clean scrape of a chair on the floor as you sit down to a life you chose. Maya texted me a photo of her car the day the policy switched. A screenshot of her name where mine had been. She wrote, "Looks right, thank you." I wrote back, "It is right, you did that." That night, I slept without the blue digits marking time. I woke up with my jaw unclenched and my fists not pretending to be pillows. So yes, peace came. Not forever, not guaranteed, conditional. But the conditions were mine to set this time. That makes all the difference. And still, because life respects irony, peace is when the universe chooses to test your locks. You know that moment when you think we're finally past it, and then a new envelope slides under your door? I didn't know it yet, sitting by the window with a cup that steamed like a small halo. All I knew was the canal, steady as breath, and the lamp, warm as a promise. And the fact that my name, for once, fit the line it was printed on. The envelope didn't look dangerous. Windowed, machine folded. Return address that made my stomach flutter. Seattle Police Department. Traffic enforcement. I stood in the kitchen with wet hands and watched a single drop creep off my wrist and fall onto the linoleum like a slow, dramatic period. You know how your body knows before your brain catches up? Mine did. My shoulders climbed, my jaw set, I opened it. Notice of infraction, hit and run, date, time, intersection, I knew. A grainy still from a traffic camera. The back of an SUV turning out of frame. The plate number in white block letters, clear as a confession. My old plate, the BMW's plate. If your name has ever shared a page with the words hit and run, you understand how the room tips. I put both palms on the counter like the apartment was a boat and I needed to steady it. Then I read the notice again, because repetition is my first aid. The violation was 3 nights ago, late wet streets. The camera caught the plate at the moment of exit. The registered owner was responsible for identifying the driver. The registered owner was me. At least in the SPD database that hadn't caught up to my sale, I had sold the car. I had a clean bill of sale, a title transfer, a cashier's check, a buyer's signature that looked like a cardiogram. It didn't matter to the paper in my hand. Paper only knows the last thing you told it. I took photos. I scanned the letter. I slid the whole thing into a new folder named X5, citation because I cope by naming things like files I can close. Then I called Karen. She picked up on the second ring. "Tell me the facts," she said, the way surgeons say, "Tell me where it hurts." I read the notice out loud and heard how calm my voice sounded like it belonged to a person in a training video. "Okay," she said, and I could hear her typing like rain. "We'll respond within the window and attach proof of sale, date, and timestamped. But we should also talk to traffic. This could be clerical. Or worst case, the buyer didn't complete registration yet. Or," she paused, picked a careful word, "something uglier." "What's uglier than a system being slow?" "Fraud," she said. "Sometimes plates get swapped during private party sales." It's rare, but rare isn't the same as never. That word sat in the kitchen with me like an extra shadow. Fraud. I stared at the still photo and tried to force the back of an SUV into the exact one I'd sold. The angle made it look wider. Or was that panic expanding the pixels? Karen sent an email while we were on the phone. She copied me and the SPD contact named in the notice. Subject line, registered owner contest. Proof of sale attached. The body was brisk. It attached the bill of sale, the buyer's ID, the date-stamped bank receipt, and a photo of me handing over the keys with my mailbox in the background for contextual verification. I didn't tell her I had made sure that photo existed. Paperwork loves evidence. Cameras love closure. An auto reply landed. Then another email, this time from an SPD sergeant who signed with a name that sounded like a sax line. He invited us to come by that afternoon for a conversation. Not an interrogation, a conversation. Imagine the word wearing a tie. The precinct smelled like coffee that had been dared to be stronger and lost. Karen met me at the door in a navy coat that meant business without yelling about it. We sat in a small room with 2 chairs, a desk, and a camera in the corner that depended on you forgetting it. The sergeant shook our hands, looked at the folder, and listened. He had the traffic still printed out on cheap paper. He also had 3 more angles from nearby cameras, because city streets are stitched with eyes if you know where to ask. He spoke plain. We get registered owner notices wrong sometimes. The system updates lag, that might be it. But something else is waving at me here. He pointed to the stills. The bumper sticker isn't where it used to be. My brain did a weird hop. I never had a bumper sticker, I said. Exactly, he said. He clicked to a second still. The SUV's plate filled the screen. He tapped the lower left. See that? Those screws? Aftermarket. And the frame? Dealership ad from a lot in Tacoma, I know. But the car you sold was listed to a different frame, and the buyer's first day wouldn't include a Tacoma frame unless he took a joyride through Adland. Not impossible, just odd. Karen leaned forward. Are you saying the plate was cloned? The sergeant didn't answer. He asked a question instead. Do you have a photo of the VIN at the time of sale? I did. Because of course I did. I had it in a folder called Handoff alongside the odometer, the buyer and me shaking hands, and the cashier's check. I airdropped it to the precinct computer like we were swapping recipes. The photo bloomed on the screen. The VIN plate at the base of the windshield, crisp and bright. He nodded. We'll run this VIN against the camera hit. We'll also run a scan near the incident for any VINs pulled by license plate readers. If the plate was cloned, the vehicle won't match the registered VIN. He left. Karen and I sat in the kind of silence that has muscle in it. I heard a phone ring down the hall. I counted the rings because numbers make time behave. He returned 10 minutes later, a new printout in his hand, and a look that said the universe had decided to test me creatively. Looks like we have a plate clone. The SUV in the hit and run matches a different VIN. Not yours, not your buyer's. Some folks copy a legitimate plate to avoid tabs, tolls, or worse. They pulled your old listing, grabbed the number, printed it, slapped it on. Printed it? I said, stupid with outrage. Like on a Home Depot lunch break? It happens, he said. Sometimes they're good prints, sometimes they're laughable. But cameras read numbers, not ethics. My shoulders dropped and then climbed again because relief and anger share an elevator. So this isn't mine, I said. I won't be on the hook. We'll annotate the citation and void it, he said. You're not responsible for this one. He held my gaze for a beat longer than casual. But you should protect yourself going forward. He slid a pamphlet across the desk. Title Watch and Identity Protection. City Resources. The font was friendlier than my mood. Register the VINs and plates you've ever owned. Set alerts. Freeze credit if you haven't already. Keep a copy of everything. He glanced at my bulletproof folder and almost smiled. You're already doing that. Karen handled the professional words. We'll also reach out to the dealership that handled Ms. Lane's sale to document the timing, and we'll notify the buyer that his new vehicle might be used as a reference in a fraud investigation, so he's not surprised if someone asks him for proof of his own VIN. I nodded like a bobblehead in slow motion. My brain was cycling through every sentence I'd said to myself in the past month about being done. See the irony? You draw a line, you set a boundary, you do the paperwork, and the universe says, cute. Now practice. Not a punishment, a practicum. At home, I opened my laptop like it was an emergency exit. I created a new folder. Vin Clone, SPD. I saved the stills, the sergeant's summary, Karen's notes. I wrote a memo to myself like I was a future coworker who could use the context. Avery, remember the feeling. You did nothing wrong. Systems are slow. Bad actors exist. Your job is to be boring on paper and loud when necessary. I printed the memo and stuck it inside the kitchen cabinet with the other cards. The cabinet door had become a tiny chapel to adulthood. Then my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail because that's what people with boundaries do. When I played it back, it was the dealership that had bought the BMW from me before reselling it. The manager's voice was urgent, the way managers' voices are when they hear lawyer in 3 syllables. He wanted to clear up any confusion and make things right if any process on our end created exposure. There were phrases like in good faith and our reputation. My mouth made a hollow O. It's funny how words like good and faith get thrown at a problem like confetti when what you actually need is a broom, I called back. Karen patched in from her office because she prefers daylight on all conversations. We talked through dates and times. I asked for a video of the intake inspection showing the plate and any identifying marks. The manager hesitated long enough for me to imagine the exact shape of the pause. Then he said he'd email what he had. A file link landed. I clicked. The video showed the BMW idling in their lot, the buyer walking around it with a checklist, a tech pointing at a scuff that looked like a failed attempt at being a meteor. The plate was there. The frame was the one I remembered. The screws were the right kind. So the clone had happened later, after the buyer drove away, somewhere out in the wild where cars sleep and criminals do boring arts and crafts. I felt the first clean relief wash through me, followed by something hotter. Anger at whoever thought they could photocopy my past and staple it to their mess. Anger at the way a random printer could try to drag me back into a story I fought to exit. If you've ever left a role and found yourself getting recast without an audition, yeah, that. I emailed the buyer, polite and pointed, copying Karen. I explained the situation in a paragraph that included 0 blame and 100% verbs. You may be approached by SPD to confirm your VIN. Here is the annotation number for the citation that is being voided as a clone. Here is the video your dealership provided. Keep these for your records. I included one sentence that was more for me than for him. We both deserve paperwork that matches the truth. Then I did what I do when rage wants to set up a cot in my chest. I went outside. The afternoon was the color of a nickel. Rain freckled the canal. A gull argued with a wake. I walked to the corner where a camera watches the crosswalk like a patient parent and stared at it. Do you ever want to look directly at the thing that misunderstood you and say, "Learn me, I'm different now"? The camera didn't blink. I laughed at myself, which helped more than it should have. Back upstairs, I opened my email to find one more message from SPD, citation void. Plate clone confirmed. The line I wanted was bolded. No further action required from registered owner. My body loosened like a fist opening to count to 5. I read it again because joy, like panic, likes repetition. Midpoint, right? If you've been following along, you know this is the moment where the story opens a door you didn't see. That letter, voided, didn't just remove a burden, it added a question mark to the air. If a stranger can print your past and wear it long enough to make a camera believe, what else can be borrowed? Identity isn't a hoodie you can lend out and hope for the best. It's a last name on a page with consequences. So let me ask you, because this is where I need a hive mind. If a ticket for a car you no longer own landed on your counter with your old plate and a camera still, what's your first move? Do you call? Do you panic? Do you start a folder with a name that sounds like a detective novel? Drop me the answer. I'll be here, labeling things. Not because labels fix everything, but because labels keep me from dissolving into the next person's story. The morning after the citation was voided, I woke up before my alarm. No blue digits. No courtroom in my head. Just a list forming like dew on a window. You know that feeling. Relief that won't sit until you give it a chair. So I made one. I opened my cabinet altar and added a new card under conditions for contact. Today's proof pack, it read, 4 boxes, bill of sale, plus title transfer, printed plus PDF on phone, video of handoff plus VIN photo, emails with timestamps, insurer, dealership, SPD, witness statement, Maya. I said each item out loud because speaking gives paper a spine. Then I packed a slim folder that could cut the air and biked downtown. Cold air combing my thoughts into straight parts. SPD had us come in for a follow-up. Not a formality, the sergeant said, a sealing. Karen met me on the steps in that navy coat again, the one that could probably represent itself in court if left on a hanger. Inside, the same small room waited. 2 chairs, 1 camera, a table that smelled faintly of permanent marker. The sergeant slid in with a fresh printout, nodded, and asked if we minded one more guest. We didn't. The door opened, and a man from the dealership, same manager voice from voicemail, now with a face, sat down like he'd practiced sitting calmly. He started with the apology salespeople learn on day 3. Warm, round, almost edible. "Sha. We regret any distress this has caused," he said, wringing his hands without wringing them. "Our intake video shows the plate and frame is received. We resold in good faith. We want to cover any legal fees you've incurred, Ms. Lane, to make you whole." Karen let the phrase "make you whole" pass like a bus in the rain. "We'll itemize after today," she said. "First, let's finish the record." The sergeant clicked to a map view. Green dots bloomed across intersections near the hit and run. "This is what we pulled overnight," he said. "LPRS, license plate readers, caught the cloned plate twice more after the incident. The vehicle body profile doesn't match your BMW. Wrong tail light geometry, wrong bumper line. We cross-referenced VIN captures in the zone and found a pair of vehicles with mismatched stories. One with a legitimate VN and no plates, one with your plate number and a VIN that, when you look closely, is a cheap overlay. Classic low-budget clone ring. Not sophisticated, but fast. He looked at me the way good cops look when they'd like you to breathe. "You did everything right. You documented the sale. You turned over proof promptly. That let us rule you out quickly and go hunting in the right alley. You know when a sentence lands in your body like a blanket fresh from a dryer? That." I exhaled and felt my ribs lower 2 floors. He turned to the dealership manager. "We'll need your cooperation for a statement on intake and resale. If this ring pulled the number from your public listing, we want to understand timing, quote." The manager nodded so vigorously I worried for his neck. "Of course. We've already pulled logs, and we'll update our site to mask plate numbers on listings going forward." Karen made a small note with a big pen. "And Ms. Lane's fees?" "Covered," he said. "All of them." Karen didn't smile. She did something better. She wrote the word "covered" on her pad and underlined it twice. Then it was my turn. I slid the proof pack across the table and spoke in the order of the boxes. "Bill of sale and title transfer. Signed, notarized, date stamped." I tapped the page. The notary's raised seal caught the fluorescent light like a coin. Video of the handoff, me and the buyer, keys changing hands, VIN plate still matching the title. The sergeant leaned in. I continued. Emails. Insurer confirming switch. Dealership confirming resale. SPD voiding citation. Timestamps align. He made a satisfied the kind you hear from people who like order. Witness, Maya. She was with me the night of the incident. She can attest I wasn't anywhere near the location. As if on cue, the door buzzed. Maya stepped in, nervous and straight-backed, like somebody about to read a line in a play with all the lights on. The sergeant offered her a chair, asked if she wanted water, then took her statement with the gentleness of someone flipping through an old book. She told the truth, where we were, when we parted, what we watched on TV that night. A baking show where nothing rose. She signed, and her hand shook just enough to make me want to cover it. I didn't. Boundary doesn't cancel love. It teaches it new choreography. The sergeant gathered everything and arranged it in a stack that felt ceremonial. He clicked his pen closed like a gavel. "Based on the evidence," he said, "we're issuing a formal letter of non-involvement for Ms. Lane." He printed it right then, on paper that sang a little as it fed through the machine. He signed with a flourish that made me like him more than a professional should allow. Then he pushed the letter to me. 4 words in bold near the bottom. "You are cleared. I didn't cry. Not because I was brave, but because my body didn't have tears left for paperwork." Relief showed up in stranger forms, in my knees loosening, in my jaw unclenching, in my breath becoming something less like fuel and more like air. Karen took the letter, scanned it with an app that made a satisfying shutter sound, and emailed it to me in one motion. "Redundancy," she said, anticipatory as a seatbelt. "We'll also send copies to the insurer and the dealership so every folder tells the same story." The manager cleared his throat, not theatrically, just human. "We'd also like to extend identity protection services for a year," he said. "We know this shook your confidence in systems. We can at least help watch your back." 2 years, Karen said without looking up. He didn't argue. 2 years. The sergeant stood, meeting over. "We'll pursue the ring," he said. "It'll take time. These things do. But your part in this is done." He pocketed his pen. "For what it's worth, I wish everyone walked in with a folder like yours. Makes our jobs easier." I wanted to tell him the folder was how I survived people who talked louder than facts, but I didn't. I just thanked him and tucked the letter into the spine like a sword. Outside, the sky was that pale Seattle blue that looks like it learned courage overnight. Maya and I stood on the steps while Karen discussed logistics with the manager at a polite distance. We looked at each other the way you do when you've been in a storm together, but different parts of the boat, she spoke first. "I didn't know it could get this sideways." "It can," I said. "But it can also get okay this fast when the paper is clean." She nodded, eyes shining in a way that wasn't about tears. "Thank you for helping me call the insurer. I didn't want to, but I'm glad we did." "That's adulthood's worst secret," I said, and we both smiled because secrets die when you say them. We walked to the corner to grab coffees we didn't need. On the way, my phone buzzed, an email from the manager with subject fee coverage confirmation and a short line. "Please send invoices for counsel time, filing, and any additional administrative costs. We will remit within 10 business days." I forwarded it to Karen with a thumbs-up emoji I almost never use. She replied with a single sentence that felt like a toast. "Admin wins, bring peace." Back at my place, I added a new card to the cabinet. Checklist, handoff that holds. 4 bullets, crisp as toast. Photographic VIN, dashboard plus door jam. Video of keys changing hands, plates visible. Notarized bill of sale with time-stamped copies. Email trail to insurer plus DMV, subject line standardized. It looked like a tiny course in not getting eaten by anyone's shortcuts. I closed the cabinet and felt a click I can only describe as satisfaction dressed in flannel. By evening, SPD sent the PDF of my non-involvement letter along with a short note. Cloned plate confirmed. Plate and VIN now flagged in system. No further contact expected. I dragged the file into VinClone, SPD, and watched the progress bar fill like a sink you actually turned off. Then I printed a second copy and slid it into my glove box alongside the registration for a car I actually own, belt and suspenders, airbags, and brakes. Maya texted, "Dinner? My treat. No parents, no car talk, just sisters. I stared at the screen for a beat that wasn't about hesitation. It was about ritual. I typed, "Okay, ground rules. If either of us says policy, we owe the other dessert." She wrote back, "Deal. I like being bribed with pie." You might be thinking this is where the story rides off into a legally scented sunset. Not yet. Justice is a quiet thing, and quiet doesn't trend. But I can tell you this. When someone who's been treated as a convenient signature receives a letter that says, "You are cleared," a small nation inside them stands up. They pass laws. They draw borders with soft pencils and firm hands. They decide what crosses and what doesn't. That nation is me now. If you've been keeping score, yes, the dealership is paying my fees. Yes, SPD is on the ring. Yes, the insurer updated record of insured to match actual drivers. Yes, I'm saving every email like candy I want to ration correctly. And yes, I slept with my jaw unclenched again. One last thing, because you're here and this is our table. If you ever have to prove your clean hands to a system that only recognizes ink, start with a list. Say it out loud, print it, sign it. Not because paper is magic, because paper is memory that can't be argued with at 2 a.m. When you choose clarity, you don't just win a case, you change how you carry your own name. So tell me, if you were me, what would be on your proof pack? What's the one item you wish you'd kept just in case? Drop it below. I'm collecting the best answers to turn into a template anyone can use the next time a stranger tries to wear their life. The letter lived in my glove box like a small white lighthouse. You are cleared. 4 words that felt like a password back into my own life. I didn't reread it every day. I didn't have to. Knowing it was there was like sleeping with the door locked. Quiet you can feel. I started with the boring heroics, title watch. I registered every violin I'd ever touched. The old sedan from college, the BMW I sold, the Corolla that hums like a reliable friend. I set alerts so the system would whisper if any of those numbers tried to sneak out at night. I froze my credit with the confidence of someone who finally believes no is a complete sentence. Lifts are temporary. Thaws are intentional. I wrote the dates on my calendar like birthdays, because future me deserves a party every time a boundary renews. Then I built a tiny ritual. Sunday evenings, after I wash the week off the dishes, I sit with tea and check the 3 places that used to scare me. Credit, insurance, DMV, 10 minutes, no drama. If something twitches, I see it. If nothing twitches, I say, "Good," out loud to an empty kitchen and mean it. Boring is a kind of love, Maya noticed, not the tea. The steadiness. We were not suddenly the kind of sisters who finish each other's sentences across a crowded room. We were 2 adults relearning a language without the slang of guilt. We met for pho on rainy nights and watched steam fog our glasses and laughed at how we both still blow on soup like it can hear us. We stuck to our pact. Car talk only when it's admin. Feelings only when they're ours. She told me about a work deadline that felt like a freight train with poor manners. I told her about the thrill of clicking submit on an expense report and knowing a dealership would pay my lawyer's invoice without a fight. We cheered for each other's small bureaucratic wins because those add up to big peace. Mom and Dad stayed in the background, which is new choreography for all of us. There were no midnight texts, no just calling voicemails that cross the line and call it concern. One afternoon, my mom sent an email with 2 sentences that sounded like she'd borrowed someone else's voice. "I'm glad you're okay. I'll try to respect your rules." I printed it, not as proof, as a blessing. On my cabinet, my little chapel of adulthood, I pinned one more card. 3 things I wish I'd known sooner. Timestamp everything. Screenshots are memory with a suit on. Don't sign just to help. If your name is a tool, you should own the toolbox. Write boundaries like policies, short, clear, no footnotes you'll regret. I read the list before I leave the house, the way some people touch a mezuzah. It isn't superstition, it's orientation. Face forward, hold the line. Work kept liking me, I kept liking work. My manager started asking me to lead kickoff meetings because you name stakes without scaring anyone. It felt like lifting a curtain in daylight. No ghosts, just dust you can see to sweep. I made a checklist for new projects that sound suspiciously like my cabinet. Scope, roles, risk, exits. The team started using it. I pretended not to glow. I also started sleeping like a person whose jaw understood it could be a hinge again. Dreams showed up that had nothing to do with police fonts. In one, I was on a ferry watching the city get smaller and kinder. In another, I had a pocket full of spare keys that all opened rooms with windows. Therapy called this nervous system recalibration. I call it getting my weather back. One Saturday, we did a sister errand day. Not because of crisis, because Target exists. We picked the same candle without meaning to. Not the kind you hand someone when they wanted a car. The kind you light when you cook rice and want the room to smell like citrus and calm. We split a box of scones and argued about raisins. We returned a sweater that fit wrong because returning things that don't fit has become a practice, not a failure. On our way out, a gust of wind carved the parking lot and flipped someone's receipt until it stuck to my ankle. I peeled it off, laughed, tossed it, and thought, once upon a time, I would have carried even other people's trash home because I didn't trust a bin to do its job. That version of me was tender. She kept us alive. She can rest. If you're waiting for a fireworks ending, that's not what resolution looks like in real life. It's quieter. It's me at my desk writing a simple budget that includes therapy and good coffee and a line item called Future Dumb Emergencies. No shame attached. It's me texting Maya, heading to Green Lake. You want in? And getting a yes with 3 shoe emojis because we're not all the way cool yet. It's me opening my glove box once a month, touching the edge of the "you are cleared" letter like you'd touch a friend's shoulder, and closing it again. Still, endings deserve a gift. So I gave myself 3. First, I upgraded my password habits like I was guarding a small country, unique long, a little silly. I wrote them down in a book that lives in a locked drawer, because no, I will not memorize 14 songs for the rest of my life. Second, I did something tangible with all that fear that calcified into paper. I bought a fireproof pouch. It isn't sexy. It's charcoal gray and squats under my bed like a reliable troll that will guard anything you feed it. Inside, titles, copies, the letter, a photo of me in front of the canal on a day I wasn't brave so much as calm. Third, I started saying no in sentences that sound like they were carved, not scribbled. No, I won't cosign. No, I won't hold a thing that lives on my credit. No, I won't take a call that starts with, "This is just easier." My no is not anger, it's architecture. It makes room for better, yes. Maya came over for dinner on a night the sky wore its best clear blue. We ate on the floor again, not because I don't own chairs, but because sitting low reminds me that foundations matter. She brought pie because we still owed each other dessert from the night we banned policy talk. We split it unevenly on purpose. She told me she'd started a folder of her own. "Mini proof pack," the label said in caps, like a superhero shouting. She held it up and grinned. "You infected me." "Good," I said. "May the plague of competence spread." We did talk about family, a little, not to rake coals, to acknowledge how we changed the flame. I thought love meant the person who could carry the most should carry the most, she said. Now I think it means everyone carries what's theirs, and we walk together. "That's all I ever wanted," I said, and my voice did a small wobble because even good sentences can make your throat glassy. We made tea, we washed plates. We played a low-stakes board game and got unreasonably mad at a cartoon thief who kept stealing our pretend jewels. Then we sat in the kind of silence that doesn't punish. I watched the canal cut a silver line into the dark and thought about how many versions of me had lived in this body the last few months. The one who swallowed, the one who ran, the one who negotiated, the one who documented, the one who asked for help, the one who taught herself to stay. If you need a morale, and I know YouTube likes a button, it's this. Choosing yourself is not betrayal, it's maintenance. Families that survive do so because someone, at some point, decided that clarity is kinder than chaos. Paper is not cold when it protects the warm things. Boundaries are not walls when you write the doorways in with your own hand. So here I am, offering you the template I built with shaking hands that finally steadied. Keep timestamps. Refuse vague favors. Make your proof pack while the room is calm. Write 3 rules for contact and speak them like a greeting. Love big, stand firm, repeat. And because this is our space, our little boardroom without the fight, I want to hear you. If a violation notice tied to a car you used to own showed up in your mailbox tomorrow, what's the very first thing you would do? Print, call, breathe? Tell me in the comments. I'm collecting your answers to shape a 1-page checklist that anyone can download, so the next person who gets ambushed by their past has a map to the exit. We can be that for each other, not lawyers in navy coats. People with lamplight and lists who refuse to let chaos brand our names.